guys. What's going on? It's Sunday.
Yep.
Hopefully you guys are having an enjoyable weekend so far. I know it's almost over, but you know what I
mean. We're reviewing a classic. Classic sci-fi.
It is a classic, yeah. We watched it like several days ago and we just didn't get around to, because I think we were supposed to review it like last Tuesday, but I was just like too wrecked to do it. So I was like, well, we'll save it for Sunday.
I haven't seen it in a long time. This is probably about the fourth time I've seen it, and it's good. I forgot how good it is. It's not an action movie. In some ways, it's kind of slow if you're expecting an action movie. It's called Gattaca. But it's very interesting about a society that is where most of the people are genetically engineered now, and how it affects society. And they got this guy who, basically by dumb luck, because his parents didn't want to do it, he wasn't genetically engineered. But his younger brother was, the one that came out after him, and he was able to do all kinds of stuff just on the basis of his DNA. And he's relegated to being a janitor. He wants to be an astronaut, though, but they made him a janitor. And because they treat you, if you're not genetically engineered, they treat you as like you're handicapped, basically.
Yeah, even though technically they do actually make the thing to say in the movie that technically it's not legal to do that, to discriminate, but they do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like everybody does it anyway.
Yeah, they use technicalities. They're like, well, we can't insure these people. So we can't bring them in the job because they can't be insured against, health insurance the same way and liability and accident insurance. So they're too much of a risk for real desirable jobs. And, it's funny because, like, if you show up for a job and you're dependent on your resume to get the job, you're gonna lose, because the guys who actually get the job just take a single blood sample out of there and they go, okay,
you're good.
You're good, because they know you've already got like the best genes possible for intelligence and the way you look and your health, so you're physically, genetically superior to a person who isn't engineered. So they're going to get all the first picks of the jobs. And it's a real kind of quiet, classy environment because all the riffraff's been fucking weeded out. It's mostly just the superior people. And but it's sterile. And this guy's trying to become an astronaut. And he figures out a way where he can fake his blood and his urinalysis and that stuff to get in there. And that's really where the movie kind of starts. And there's a bunch of lessons in the movie. Philosophical lessons about your limitations. It's good, though. Real good.
Well, yeah, I kind of feel like the whole theme of the movie, the cool thing about the movie, I feel like a lot of people, this came out in 1997, and I think I saw it in the theater. I'm pretty sure I saw it in the theater, and I was like, wow, that was really good. And I saw it a couple times subsequently. It didn't do very well at the box office. It cost like $36 million to make. I don't even think it made half its budget back. I think it came in like 5th place, like in its first week. People just really didn't resonate with it, I guess. In the 90s, sci-fi was maybe a lot more flashy or a lot more. This was a lot more. This is kind of like more like a noir film in a science fiction context.
Yeah,
it's structured like a noir film, and there's like a murder mystery aspect to it also.
And it's detective. The motif, the stylistic motif is kind of like late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, it's like retrofuturism.
Yeah, it's futuristic, but everything looks like the cars look like something out of the 50s or the 60s.
Yeah, they're based on like old 60s cars. Yeah. Which I thought was cool. I like the whole look of it.
They're all classy and shit. Leather interiors. But they're electric. Or something. I guess they're electric. And then, they have real high technology, but you don't really notice it. Because everything's kind of just like very decorative. And the technology is very minimal. Very, very small and minimalized. They have laptops. Laptops, don't they? Or are they PCs?
Yeah, sort of. They're like PCs, yeah.
They don't seem to have any mobile devices.
No.
They don't. But they don't really need them, I guess. They hadn't thought about it for the movie, but in the story, they're not really needed. It's got a real good cast. The acting's very good. I know why this didn't make any money. I mean, it's a well-made movie, well-crafted. It's well thought out.
It's a beautiful-looking movie, a beautiful-sounding movie. The score is great. Michael Nyman did the score, actually. But the score is really good. But it's just the look of it is just like really gorgeous.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why people it didn't really catch on. It's not an action movie. It's one of the reasons why.
It's a character piece, like more like a noir movie. Like,
yeah. If you like Blade Runner, you'd like this.
Yeah, Slasher Fred just mentioned Blade Runner. Yeah. Like, instead of that, it also has a noir feeling with Decker narrating. Yeah. Yeah, this also has narration, and it's very... I was watching another review of it, and they said that this movie is very earnest. Like, it takes itself very... So like a noir movie would. It's not, like, winking at the audience. It's not funny. It's not... Like, some of the... I don't know, it just seems like a movie that would have come out like in the 40s or 50s, and that was very deliberate, like that tone of it, but in a more like modern sterile setting. And I think that really worked for me. Like I really, really like that, but I can see how maybe some people like thought it was weird or off-putting or something like that, because like I said, it's not like a high action movie. It's more like it's actually kind of more like an allegorical movie.
Well, there's a bunch of lessons about materialism and being superficial partly, but I think another reason why it maybe alienated might have alienated audiences is because the main character is just a normal guy, and he's surrounded by authority figures who are superior. They're not faking that they're superior. They are superior.
They're genetically
engineered. They're better than you are. They're stronger. They're faster. They're smarter. They're better looking. They live longer. They're a lot more healthy than you. They can smoke and drink to their heart's desire, and they'll never get sick. They're better than a normal human. So I think that kind of turns a lot of people off. You know, I mean, the idea of genetic engineering and supremacy, it bothers people. But that's the point of this movie. Okay? Without that, this movie doesn't work. This guy's able to kind of, through basically willpower, he's able to compete against these people
because he wanted it.
Because he wanted it, yeah.
The thing about it, what's the cool message about this movie is that despite all of these people being, like you said, they are objectively genetically superior to Ethan Hawke's character, whose name is Vincent.
But there's limits to that, and the movie gets into that.
And the movie gets into that because those people, in a lot of ways, and you can kind of make a parallel too with like people who are born very wealthy or something like that. They just have everything handed to them. They don't really have to work hard for anything.
It's easy for them.
It's easy for them, and they don't really have the passion and the drive to like overcome adversity the way that someone like Vincent would have to, who is, genetically inferior. He was just natural born in a world where most people are genetically engineered. So he had to struggle and strive and work harder for everything that he wanted. And the genetically superior people never had to do that.
Right. They don't take rejection as well.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the characters is he was just born to be. He's played by Jude Law. He's fucking.
I love Jude Law.
Super handsome, super intelligent, super witty, and he's the best fucking swimmer you could fucking imagine, right? But he competes and he gets a silver.
He came in second.
Came in second, not first, because guess what? Everybody is a superior swimmer.
Yeah.
They can't control luck.
Yeah.
Okay. So he attempts suicide, but he fails, and it puts him in a damn wheelchair.
Yeah, he fucks his legs all up.
Yeah, and a bunch of shit. So even though you could be genetically, objectively superior, it's not really going to help you that much because you can't control luck. And if you're genetically superior, so are all your peers. So there's no advantage. You don't have an advantage over them.
Yeah, because everybody's the best.
Like that. Right.
So it's like you're just vaulting yourself into just like another competition.
Right. So what ends up happening is you end up becoming, even though you're genetically superior, amongst your peers, you're just mundane. Yeah. Because
everybody's awesome.
Yeah, because everybody's awesome. So that problem comes in. They talk about that. And in a way that Jude Law in the wheelchair helps. He's given up his blood samples and his skin samples to help Vincent to have a fraudulent identification.
To pass as him.
So they switch IDs. And he's kind of living vicariously through him because he's actually seeing somebody who is actually struggling but winning.
Yeah.
And he's becoming more than what he really is. The Jude Law character will never be more than what he is because he is what he is and he's already maxed out. Yeah. But so are all of his friends.
Yeah.
So he's just another one. There's no dreams to that, only reality. So it's a good flick. It's a real good flick, and it's one where you can't just watch it. You have to kind of learn from it. It teaches a bunch of lessons in it.
I was reading like a review of this, and there was like a lot of comments of people that were actually commenting some really insightful things like about this movie. And one of the things that they pointed out that I don't think that I ever thought of when I was watching this movie was that Jude Law's character, his name is Jerome, would he even, had he just been born in the natural way like nowadays, and it's like, would he even have wanted to be an Olympic swimmer? The implication is that his parents had him genetically engineered to be like an athlete, to be an Olympic swimmer. Would that have been what he would have chosen?
Probably not.
So
just like the piano player that had the fucking
12 fingers.
He was made for that.
That's
all he could do.
And it's like, did he really want to do that?
It wasn't his
That's
choice.
just kind of, it wasn't his choice.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what they're getting at too. Like, they don't hit you over the head with that, but I was like, oh yeah, like Jude Law might not have like chosen to be his woman. Like, he might not have wanted to do that. But see, the point of it was that Vincent's character, he was just born regular. But ever since he was a kid, he wanted to go into space. He wanted to be an astronaut, and he wanted that more than anything. And that actually made him work harder and, like, do all this other stuff, and, like, made him, in a way, like, because he had to work around his limitations that other people didn't have. Like, other people had things given to them really, really easily. They could just go in, give a drop of blood. They're like, okay, you can be an astronaut. He had to, like, find all these devious ways to, like, work around the rules of society so that he could get in there. And once he got in there, he was actually good enough to compete with them. Yeah. But see, he would have never been given a chance because of his inferior genetics. So he had to, like, really fake an identity to get in there.
And I forgot, he was a normal guy, but he actually had inferior genetics. He had a genetic heart failure, genetic heart defect.
Yeah.
So that was...
The point of that was, like, because they said when he was born that he had it was 99% that he would die before 30 or something like that. But see, 99% isn't 100%. So there's a chance that he still, I mean, obviously he was still alive, like he was older than 30. So I think that was kind of another underlying message of the movie too, is that
nothing is certain.
Nothing is certain, even if the people are genetically engineered, because even the doctor at the end that knew that he was faking the identity and was just kind of like, go ahead anyway because my son. I think that his son the doctor's son wasn't natural born. He was genetically engineered, but he didn't turn out
right
the way that they thought. And Uma Thurman's character, Irene, she is genetically superior, but she also has a heart condition. So it's not a perfect science.
You're right.
So that's kind of another thing that they're saying. It's like, even these people that are genetically engineered, there's still, like, an element of, like you said, luck in there.
Yeah, well, they can't control fate because they have bad luck.
Yeah.
And then they don't really seem to have any control over their fate. Like, they didn't choose what they were built for.
Right.
So what they're implying is that they're not free.
Yeah.
That they're not really free. That they were purpose-built. So there's no choice in any of this. You know what I mean? You're purpose-built to be a fucking piano player.
Yeah.
They're purpose-built to be a fucking swimmer. And when he came in second, because everybody else was just like him that he was competing against, he tried to kill himself. Because he realized he was not free, in a way. You know what I mean? It was, everything is stacked against you because everything is equal. And equality is not about being supremacy. You know, it's about luck. And you can't control luck.
Yeah.
If everybody's exactly the same. So
that's what I mean.
So it's false supremacy.
Right. When it comes down to it, Vincent's character, who did not have any of the advantages that they had, was able to work his way in there and go into space and be an astronaut and realize his dream just on the bare thing of him wanting it so bad that he was just willing. And obviously, like, he had to get in there and he had to be smart enough to do all the work and he had to do all of that. Like, otherwise they would have caught him.
He was,
right?
He was also, as I was going to say, he was also able to fool them for a long time about who he was and he was able to evade detection during a murder investigation.
Yeah.
And he was a suspect.
Yeah.
But he got eliminated later on. But
because imagine the work, I mean, the work that he had to go through just to get into Gattaca, like I said, and obviously, everybody that's genetically engineered, you know, obviously things are going to happen to them. Like they'll get in accidents or they'll, you know, try suicide like Jude Law's character did. And he became like, you know, he was in a wheelchair, like, because he lost the use of his legs. So you know that has to happen often enough because there is a black market in what they call, you know, a borrowed ladder. That's like when you go and use somebody else's DNA, like their urine and their blood and their skin flakes and stuff like that, so you can pass as somebody else. So there's obviously a black market in it that they're like looking out for, so it has to be like fairly common.
Uma Thurman plays this genetically engineered chick that he works with, and all the girls in the space program, and it looks just like a regular office. They're wearing suits and stuff and on desks, and they're doing all this damn advanced fucking physics and mathematics, and all the girls are infatuated with him. You know, they think he's genetically superior because he's coming up real high on the tests. You know, and he's the way he carries himself, they buy it. Well, they're raiding his workspace with little vacuum cleaners, trying to vacuum up and find it hair and skin cells and just anything so they could have him analyzed. They wanted to see how good his DNA really was, and that was something that they did evidently in this world, in this universe, as part of their dating culture.
Yeah,
they wouldn't date you until they actually got a DNA sample from you, but it was kind of, you couldn't ask. It was like considered to be rude. So they would try to steal DNA from him.
Like take a hair out of your comb. Or one girl, they show like one girl going into, you know, the place where you do it. So it looked like a 1 hour photo type of situation where you just go in there, and I guess the guy had kissed her. And so they took his DNA like off her lips.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, run him through the thing and see what was going on.
It's kind of like running a motherfucker's credit before you want to date him. Yeah, man. Let's see his credit score first.
Or, you know, Googling him.
Yeah, gonna Google. Yeah.
Well, but although I would advise doing that because you got to find out, like, you don't want them to be like a sexual predator or something like that. You know what I mean?
But that's what they're doing, see. And he knows all the girls are after him, so he's got to clean up all of his debris that's fallen off his body, and he's got to replace it.
With Jude Law's debris.
Stuff. So they have
fingernails and eyelashes and stuff. So he is like really going all in on this shit.
They're getting samples and they're coming back, and they're coming back with Jude Law. What's his name? What was that character's name?
Jerome,
that's right. Coming back with Jerome's DNA results and everything, and his shit's off the charts. Okay, so the Uma Thurman's character, I forgot what her name was supposed to be. Irene, that's right. Irene is fucking head over and heels for him. She's doing everything she can to get her hooks into him. And she's got a badass pad out on the beach and everything, you know. And it's just, I don't want to spoil it. I mean, it's an old movie, but she eventually finds out
that he's not
genetically engineered, that he's actually fucked up, that he's got a hard job.
He's fucked up just like the rest of us.
And her mind is blown. That she can't believe that, you know, he was able to pull this off. Because in this world that would be the equivalent of you being like on Wall Street, and then you find out that the guy you're trying to date was hiding the fact that he had Down syndrome. That's at what level it was.
Yeah, because they just assumed that, I mean, if you were an invalid, if you were naturally born, like Ethan Hawke's character was, then basically they were just like, well, you got to be a janitor. You just got to clean toilets.
If you're not genetically engineered, you're literally like a Down syndrome person. You're mentally handicapped.
Yeah, that's how they treat people.
Yeah, like the difference between a human and a chimpanzee or something like that, like another species.
Yeah, it's like a caste system. Is basically what it is.
So she can't believe it, but she learns a lesson about love, I guess. That's I don't want to ruin all of it.
Well, I mean, she gets mad when she finds out that he's not who he says he is when she meets the real Jerome.
Yeah.
Because, during the course of the murder investigation.
Yeah.
But she's mad, but then, he's like, well, I'm the same person, that I have been this whole entire time, and you like me then, so... Yeah. And, he has a heart condition, she has a heart condition, so it's like she kind of, like, relates to him on that level as well. So I like that in the end, she just, he actually, like, gives her... Because there was a whole thing where... she stole one of his hairs, even though it was Jude Law's hair, and she didn't know that, to from his desk, and like had him genetically she admitted it later. She's like, yeah, I did your DNA thing, and she's like, here, you can do mine, and she pulled her hair out, and he was like, oops, nope, because he was just like, nah, I don't care about that, I just like you as a person. So I like that at the end, like, she did the same thing. He was like, look, this is who I really am, and gave her a piece of hair, and she was just like, oops, and she just kind of let it go, because she was like, I just liked you the way you were, and and I don't have to like know all of that, because that's the thing that they're kind of like addressing in the movie is, yeah, you can have all these genetic advantages, you can have all this kind of stuff, like you can have all this great potential, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your potential is going to be realized, and that doesn't mean that somebody that doesn't have all of those advantages can't like kick ass also, because like I said, this is really kind of like an inspirational story in a lot of ways, because he just wanted it so badly that he achieved it, even though he had to do, like I said, not only did he had to scrub himself like with wire brushes and stuff, like to get all skin flakes and all this other kind of like hair and shit like that off him as much as possible. Then he had to take little vials of like Jude Law's matter, like with skin flakes and hair and stuff, and like put that on his desk in case they vacuum shit up and like looking for it.
And they were.
And and especially after, because the stakes got higher because somebody in the company like got murdered, and then they found like a stray eyelash that belonged to
Jerome.
Belonged to Vincent.
Vincent, that's right. Yeah,
like his other, his real identity.
And they're gonna. There was an invalid in here.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, that's clearly the person that was the murderer.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, it couldn't be. There hasn't, that guy's been out of the company for a long time, because they had the ID. Because he used to work there.
He was a janitor.
He was a janitor there. And they're going, yeah, he hasn't worked in here in a long time. It's got to be something just blowing around.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's just kind of like... And, oh, I forgot to mention, too, that Jerome, the real Jerome, was actually, 2 inches taller than Vincent? So he actually had to have his legs broken, and he had to, like, stretch out so he'd be the same height, so he could pass as that guy.
Yeah.
But my favorite part about this movie, other than, like, the look of it, and just kind of like the issues that it raises. And like I said, it's almost kind of like an inspirational kind of movie too. But I really like the relationship between Ethan Hawke's character and Jude Law's character. Yeah. Because, I mean, he just basically gets in with Jerome because, like I said, there's a black market. And he's like, well, this guy they kind of look alike. They're kind of the same. And he could pass as him, you know what I mean? So at first, Jerome is just kind of like doing this as a business. I mean, he's a very cynical guy. I mean, he's depressed. He was superior. Like I said, he came in second, and it's like he couldn't take it because the weight of expectation was just like too much for him. So he's basically just like sitting around in his apartment in his wheelchair, just like smoking all the time.
Smoking and drinking,
drinking and getting hookers and shit like that, because he's just like given up on life pretty much because he didn't live up to his potential. Mm. But as the story goes on, they actually develop like a really interesting friendship, and it gets to the point where Jerome, he almost like starts to, like you said, live vicariously through Vincent, because he's like, well, I can't do anything anymore, but you're going to space and you're doing it. Yeah. And so he almost gets like enthusiastic about that, like it's giving him another reason to live, like, because he's like, I can help you achieve your dream. I'm my dream is over. I can't do anything anymore. But he almost kind of like finds a temporary like new lease on life, like helping him, do what he wants to do. And I thought that was like really cool. I really liked the relationship because the acting with them was like really, really good.
Yeah, it didn't last long though, because what ends up happening is that the dude was just designed to be the best, and he just couldn't be in that wheelchair any longer.
Yeah.
So he just told him, he says, because He says, "You're gonna go off to Titan, and when you come back, I'm gonna." And he's showing him all this big freezer filled with fucking urine and blood and bottles, and he goes, "These are all my samples here, enough for you to last a lifetime. So I'll be with you forever." And he goes, "Where are you going?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm going traveling." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And boy went off to fly to Titan, and Jude Law climbed into the damn garbage incinerator and set himself on fire, killed himself.
Yeah. Well, he was. You knew he was going to do that the whole time because he just talked about he was finishing the job. Because, like you said, his life was over. I liked too, like that he gave Vincent a piece of his hair, like because he was like, "I wrote you a letter, like don't open it till you're in space, like until you actually did it." And there was like his hair in there, so it's almost like a little piece of him got to go
to Titan,
right? Yeah. So I thought that was like kind of cool.
Yeah.
But so I like that ending, and I also like we haven't even talked about the whole relationship between Vincent and his brother Anton.
Yeah.
Because Vincent was born first, and his parents were just like, fuck it, we're not going to get genetically, because people still do that.
Yeah, they were
I don't even think it was religion.
He said they didn't know. Remember, he says, "Don't you want God to have a say in any of this?" Remember that about selecting what DNA that the kid would have. Shouldn't we leave that up to God? That's what the mama said.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I thought they were just kind of like, fuck it.
but then a couple years later, they changed their mind. They had another kid, and they had him cranked up.
Let's design.
We're gonna
this
have
one
us a
the
better
way
one
we
because he was having problems. Remember, he was having heart problems.
Yeah, he couldn't see that. Well, his vision was bad.
So his dad was disappointed in him.
Yeah.
Didn't even give him his name.
Yeah, he was gonna name him after himself. That was that was really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That he's like when the baby was born and they told him like what the genetic predispositions were, and he's like, we're gonna name him Anton or Antonio, I think the dad's name was. No. We'll name him Vincent.
Yeah.
But then the second kid that was genetically engineered, he named that one Anton.
Right.
So he named him after him.
Yeah, because he figured that one would live longer, and that would be his son.
Yeah. And I was like, man, that's fucked up, Dad.
It's kind of a practical decision in a certain way. He thought that they told him that kid wouldn't live very long.
Right. Little did they know, though.
Yeah. Their statistics didn't work out all the time.
Yeah, because like I said,
you couldn't control destiny or fate. Is part of the thing.
That's the thing, and that's kind of the thing that this sort of alludes to. This movie is that with all the science in the world and all the designer genetics and everything like that, you're never gonna be like 100%.
Yeah,
because there's just too many variables.
Yeah, you can't dictate to the world and nature how things will occur.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
That's what I mean.
Predictions almost never come true.
No.
Go back and look at scientific predictions from 50 years ago or 100 years ago. They're ridiculously wrong. You can go back 30 years and the shit that they thought would be, what'll be around 30 years from now will be, flying cars. No, it doesn't happen. You can't predict it.
Yeah. And that's just the same thing with this, which is why this kind of like designer engineer. I'm not saying that people aren't going to start doing gene editing and stuff like that, because I think they're
already doing it.
That's what I mean. I think they're already kind of doing it.
Yeah.
But it's never going to be an exact science because, like I said, there's just too many variables, and you can't control the outside world.
Yeah.
You could make the most superior genetic specimen in the world, and they could walk out the street one day and a piano could fall on them and crush them to death. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't really.
They say China's doing it, but it's expensive. And evidently rich couples can go to China and have a designer baby made. But I think it's clandestine. I don't think it's...
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's legal.
Because, I mean, it is kind of like a... And the thing about this movie in particular is that they don't necessarily villainize the parents for wanting that. Because the thing about it is, like, if you're going to have a kid, it's not crazy to think, oh, well, I want my kid to have every possible advantage in life. I don't want them to get sick. I don't want them to suffer. So that's not a bad thing necessarily. But so it's like understandable that people would want to do that.
Yeah.
But then it's just kind of like, exploring the ramifications of that, like over the long term.
Yeah. And it seems to have happened with all races. There are white people, Hispanic people, and black people in this movie that are genetically engineered.
Yeah, they just genetically engineer everybody.
So anybody of the newer generation is just genetically engineered.
I mean,
they're all real intelligent and chilled out, and it's like you're talking to a doctor, or some kind of professional.
Well, I think that was kind of meant to show that they were essentially soulless. Because, like I said, they didn't really have to. They didn't have to struggle like Vincent had to struggle. They didn't have any passion. They didn't have. They didn't want. They were just like made to do a specific thing, and they were just shit hot at it and really good at it. They didn't have to try hard. They could just do it.
Yeah, it came naturally to them.
Right. So they didn't really have. They didn't develop any kind of like personality quirks or anything like that. So everyone was just kind of samey. I think that's kind of what they were.
They were. Well, I would describe them as they were slick. They were very slick and elegant.
Yeah.
All right, classy. But Jenny's probably right. They were probably generic though too.
Yeah. That was kind of the impression that I got. Yeah. That it's like everyone was just so awesome that they didn't have to like
enough variation in the personalities of anything to
they didn't really have to try to do anything, like I said, so they didn't really have to like overcome any kind of adversity. Not
a lot of unique character there, I guess.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So I think that's what they were. I mean, this was a relatively low budget for a movie of this type.
Yeah, it doesn't look low budget though.
It doesn't look low budget. No. It's actually like really beautiful. The cinematography is really nice. And like I said, I really like the retro futuristic feel, like a noir feel. It makes it feel very timeless in a way. But
I placed this movie high.
It's really good, and I feel like it's really underappreciated.
Yeah. And it's a forgotten classic now. All-star cast.
I feel like if you like Blade Runner, or if you like something like Moon, this kind of reminds me of the same kind of thing as Moon. Maybe it's not exactly the same, but it's the same kind of vibe, I guess.
A great performance by Ernest motherfucking Borgnine.
Yeah, Ernest Borgnine is in this. It's not a huge role, but yeah.
No, but he's good. He shows up and he goes, you want to go to space? Start by cleaning this space right over here. He was one of the janitors. He was an old guy. He was
like the manager of the janitors.
Yeah, he was an old guy before genetic engineering, and they gave him the job of just running the janitors, the non-engineered janitors, and he was just resigned to his fate. Yeah, you'll keep dreaming. You're not going to space.
Yeah, it's like fuck that. It's like that's not for us.
That's not for us, boys. Yeah,
right. Yeah, this actually has a great cast. Alan Arkin is in it. He plays like one of the detectives when the murder investigation happens. Gore Vidal is in this. Yeah, it's just a really, really good.
Yeah, and Danny DeVito produced this.
He produced a lot of movies in the 90s, but I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, his little short ass. Maybe that's why this movie appealed to him, overcoming physical limitations.
Well, he did that like a motherfucker, didn't he?
Yeah, they say he was like one of the nicest guys in Hollywood, just a total normal guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think this kind of like the message of this movie kind of like resonates with a lot of people because. It just shows that, I mean, I was watching this video before where a guy was saying that he saw this when he was younger, and he said, I was kind of like a chubby kid, and I had these big Coke bottle glasses and all this stuff. He's like, so when I saw this movie, it was like really inspirational, because I thought, hey, that guy was kind of fucked up, and he like got over it. Like he went through and he like fixed all his problems, and because he just wanted something so badly. Like he had a goal in mind, and he said, I'm gonna fucking do that. And he's like, and that was like really aspirational.
Yeah, it wasn't free. He just didn't cheat, and therefore he got there. No, he fucking read all these books, huge amounts of fucking books about physics and science. Fucking went through a bunch of physical training to pass all the damn astronaut shit that he had to do. Remember that? He was doing pull-ups and fucking gymnastics and stuff. And he was doing it with no money, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, he had to put the work in. He didn't have all the advantages that the genetically engineered people had.
Yeah, they didn't even really have to work at it.
Right, so he had to work like way harder than them, like to get to the same place.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's almost kind of like a class struggle type of thing too. Like, people that are born really wealthy and have everything handed to them, as opposed to somebody born really poor without any advantages. It's the same.
Try to come up.
Right. It's like the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Zach said this movie does remind me a lot of how picky people my age are when it comes to dating and how frustrating it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is a little nightmarish, but you could like see this happening though.
Well, what's funny is that it is a utopia, but for a person of who's not genetically engineered, it's a dystopia.
Right.
But it's intended to be utopia.
Isn't that always the way?
It's a utopia for the genetically engineered. Everybody else,
they're having a great time.
The non-engineered are being phased out, and they're just like, you're the janitor now, and they're just waiting for you to die off.
What
They're just
happens when
keeping
all
you-
they die off? Then who's going to be the janitors?
Probably robots.
Robots.
Probably robots.
That's what I was just going to say.
I think it was busy work more than anything else.
Yeah, they were just kind of like just.
They were just keeping their eye on them and watching them leave, watching them slowly die off is what they were doing.
Yeah, I guess so.
They just wanted to know where they were. Yeah, that's what they would do.
Make sure they're not getting up to any mischief.
Well, yeah, would you let them just run around?
Right.
No. If you
Yeah,
were,
you have to give them like something to
You'd
do.
have to have them give them something to do, and you'd have to be accountability. You'd have to know where they are, because they would run amok in a society like the Gattaca society. So you'd have to keep them busy, and that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Initially, Hugo said The Island from 2005 also come to mind. Yeah, that's kind of similar as well. This one, actually, this was the guy named Andrew Niccol wrote and directed this, and this was his directorial debut. He actually got the chance to do this because he wrote The Truman Show like a year or two before, which is a great movie, another great movie, by the way. Because I don't think we've covered that one. But it's kind of a shame that this movie really didn't do very well at the box office, but I feel like it's one of those ones that was kind of like ahead of its time.
I think it was.
And so now it's become like a cult classic, and it's almost kind of one of those ones that really kind of like seeped into the cultural zeitgeist, like almost without anybody noticing. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Something about the movie is kind of relaxing and kind of inspirational. I mean, it's inspirational. It has kind of a bittersweet ending where there's triumph for one character and kind of tragedy for the other simultaneously.
Yeah.
Which, but at the end, you it ends up being kind of like a feel-good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I found it that. And I really, like I said, I think we just started talking about like the relationship with him and his brother. One of the best lines in the movie, and actually Ethan Hawke has said in interviews that this is one of his favorite movies that he did, and he was like, it was a shame that it didn't do better, but that like, you know, it's a cult classic now, so that's good. But it was one of the favorite movies that he had ever worked on, and he actually worked with Andrew Niccol a lot, like subsequently in a lot of his other movies later on.
Yeah, I want to actually own this one.
Yeah,
I would like to get this like on Steelbook.
Yeah, that would.
bet,
Yeah. Is there a steelbook of this? There's got to be.
gotta
There's
be.
got to be at this point.
Yeah.
But one of the best lines in the movie is that there's kind of a thing where him and his younger brother Anton, they would do like a swimming race, like, you know, like, or it's more like a game of chicken, I guess, really, like who was going to chicken out first. And for a long time, like when they were kids, you know, Vincent would always lose because he was genetically inferior, and Anton would always win. But then there was one day when they were teenagers when Anton lost, like he didn't get voice, and then he started to drown, and then it ended up that Vincent saved him. And so it was kind of this thing. And then like now that they're adults and they like reconnect as adults, and then they do the same thing again, and Anton loses again. And so he says to Vincent, he's like, well, how did you do all this? He's not talking about how did you beat me swimming. Yeah. How did you get into Gattaca, which is like this big, you know, top kind of thing. How did you get in there, and how did you actually get to a point where you're going into space? And he says something like, Vincent says, you know how I did it? He's like, I never saved anything for the swim back. Yeah. That's what he said.
Just balls to the wall. Do or die.
And it's like, yeah, and that's just like, he just didn't worry about it. He's like, he had his eyes on the prize, and he had a goal, and he just like worked as hard as possible just to get to it. He didn't worry about like. Yeah,
Gattaca is a space company. I guess it's kind of like SpaceX. Mm-hmm. They were launching rockets every few hours, going to other planets and other worlds. But they were all in the solar system. I believe they were all in the solar system.
Yeah, I think they were basically just going to like moons around various like planets and stuff.
So, but another thing is GATC or is the fucking the 4 proteins that make
the nucleobases,
the nucleotide, or the of your DNA. Yeah. So that's kind of a tricky, kind of a cool name.
Yeah,
for the movie and where he was working.
Originally, the movie was supposed to be called The Eighth Day, you know, cause, like the 7 days of creation or whatever. But then, like, they found out that there was like a foreign movie that was coming out the same time, and it was called The Eighth Day, so they had to change it. But Gattaca is a great name. I mean, I really, really like that.
It means basically DNA.
Yeah,
that's DNA. That's what it means.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like symbolic, because like even like in Jerome's apartment, like he has that spiral staircase that looks like a DNA thing and everything. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
There's a lot of symbolism in it.
Yeah. Zach says, also, can we talk about the upside down sex scene? Yeah, that's right. It was Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. It was like it was in her apartment, and I'm watching it. I'm like, well, is that because it looked like her house was like this, had a glass wall, right? And then it was like right on the ocean or like the beach was like right up there. I was like, is that a screen like showing something, or is that a window, or what is that? I couldn't figure it out.
I was under the impression that the walls were glass. And they were on the beach, and that the walls to her bedroom were glass. Yeah. She was living in a glass house, literally.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that may have been what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Living in a glass house.
Man, they put a lot of thought into this kind of stuff.
Yeah. That was my interpretation. I may be wrong.
Yeah.
But that's what I think.
No, I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah.
I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah. But it was a beautiful house.
It really was.
You better be an exhibitionist. Or not just give a shit. Or you live in a world where nobody really cares.
Because they were in there hitting it, man. And the whole ocean was seeing it. The whole ocean. Yeah, the whole ocean. And all little dolphins and lobsters and stuff like popping up going, ooh.
Yeah, and there was like fucking California Highway 101 right out front of the front door. Remember that? Yeah. So I guess, the shit was so classy that you could just, have sex in full view, and that shit was stylish. Have fun, people. Wasn't any lewd fucking meat jerkers or anything, None of those guys would appear. Nowadays, he'd be a bunch of bums out there fucking beating out in California. Wine, here, hold my wine. Back there.
Looking in your window.
Watching Uma Thurman bounce up and down on top of Ethan Hawke. Yeah, with a little cute bob haircut. She brought the bob back.
Well, like I said, they styled everyone in this movie very much like a noir film. Yeah. So she looked very much like a classic, like, noir. Yeah. Like, she even had, I think that one scene where they go see the 12-fingered pianist, like, she had that blonde, that kind of crest hair kind of action going, which was, like, awesome. And I was like, I always wished I could get my hair to do that, but I'd have to have somebody else do that. I don't really know how they do that. Zach said, also, the cinematographer on this movie worked with the great Polish director, Krzysztof Kieslowski, a lot on his career, which is really cool. Yeah, this is just a gorgeous looking movie. It does look a lot more expensive than $36 million, to be honest with you. But, the upside down sex scene, that's like really funny. All right, so are we done
talking about it? Yeah, okay. I just recommend the flick, man. It's a good flick. You guys would like it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people maybe don't talk about it. Or a
lot of life lessons in it.
Yeah, it's just like a really well done. Like I said, it's allegorical.
Yeah, you gotta think about it.
Yeah, like more than super realistic. And it doesn't give you like a timeline either. I think like it just says in the not too distant future.
Yeah, it's just whenever you want.
Next Sunday AD. For all you misties out there. But yeah, so everybody should watch it. It's really, really good. Especially if you like sci-fi. If you like Blade Runner or anything like that, like you'd probably dig it. So tomorrow is Monday. That means it's Haunting Mondays.
Yeah, so we got to watch a haunting tonight.
So we got to do a haunting. Like I said, it's going to be later. We're probably not going to start till 7:30 because, of work schedules and things like that. But I think we are going to do, because I was looking through all the episodes today, and I was like, hey, there's a season 1 episode. It's episode 4, and it's called Cursed, and I'm pretty sure we haven't done that one. So I think that we're going to do that one. Because I thought we'd done all the season 1 episodes, but I was looking at that, I was like, that does not look all that familiar. So, but that doesn't mean like it's not a memorable episode. It's just we saw so many. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it'll be season 1, episode 4, Cursed is the one we're going to do. And like I said, it'll be a later start. It'll probably be 7:30, like Eastern Standard Time, like before we get into it. But hopefully you guys can all join us for that. So, thanks for coming by and hanging out with us on this Sunday evening. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Good night.